Welcome to day 17 of our Craft Along Countdown to Christmas. Today we're going to be making angel gnomes. So thank you so much for joining us and let's get started. So what we're going to use is a white fabric for our hat. We're going to use a white sock for the body of our gnome. We're going to need polyfill and rice to fill our gnome. We're going to use a wooden ball for the nose. We're going to have white faux fur for our gnome's fur. And then we're going to have little wings. So I actually got these off of something from Valentine's Day and kept them just to make these angel gnomes. But I do have a pattern for wings in the hat for the gnome down below. So you can print that off and use that as well. But let's get started on making these cute little gnomes. The first step is to make our gnome's hat. So you can print off and download the pattern down below, cut it out and tape it together. And then we're going to use it to cut out our hat. Now I have this really pretty white fabric that I'm going to use for my gnome's hat, and I'm going to cut my pattern right on the edge of the fabric. It has a very raw edge on one of the sides, and I'm actually going to use that raw edge to be the center of the front of my hat. So I'm going to cut right along that selvage end on my white fabric, and then I'm going to cut out the rest of the pattern. You can pin it to the fabric and cut, otherwise you can just cut it with your scissors, and that's what I did. I didn't bother to pin it and it worked out just fine. Then I'm going to take it over to my sewing machine and I'm just going to run a stitch down that open side of my hat, and then you can see here I have my hat ready to go and it has that raw edge down the center. Now the next step is to stuff our gnome, so I'm going to start by filling the bottom of my sock with about a 1/4 cup of rice. You can also use little rocks or sand in the bottom. I'm just going to use a 1/4 cup of the rice I have, and then I'm going to stuff the rest of the body with polyfill. And I want to get a nice full body to my gnome, and you can see I'm kind of just using the bottom 7 inches to 8 inches of my sock. So I cut off the top of it already, and then I'm just going to keep filling it until I get a nice plump gnome body. And once you do this enough, you'll kind of get the feel for how full you want that. I'm going to tie the top of the body with a rubber band just to tie off that open part of my sock. And now I'm ready to put my hat on my gnome. So I'm actually going to take my hat and fill it slightly with polyfill as well, leaving the bottom half of it really kind of open, because when I put that on top of the body of the gnome, part of the hat is filled in with the sock body. Now you can always add a 18 gauge wire or a wooden dowel in the center of your hat to kind of make it stand up. This fabric I'm using is very sturdy, so I think the hat will stay up just fine with just polyfill. And then I'm just going to situate my beard and my nose on my gnome to get an idea of how it will look. But this looks how I want it, so I'm just going to hot glue my hat into place. So just run a line of hot glue along the bottom of your hat, all the way around your hat, so that the hat stays on nice. And I should have mentioned with the hat, if you don't sew, it's always a possibility to also hot glue your hat. You can just do that same seam that I sewed, you can just use hot glue on that as well. And then once the hat's in place, I'm going to go ahead and glue my beard in place. So again, there's a pattern down below for the beard. I just hot glued that on all sides, and I'm going to just place it on my gnome's body. And then we have a spot just for our wooden nose. So I'm going to take hot glue and I'm going to glue that on the center of my gnome's body. And there you go. Now we have the base of our gnome. That would be a cute little winter gnome, but we're going to add the little wings for our angel gnome. So again, if you don't have any wings on hand, or you can purchase those on Amazon, or you can just cut your own from felt, or you could use cardstock or cardboard and cover it with fabric for little wings as well. But I have the pattern down below for that. But I'm just going to hot glue my wings on the back of my gnome, and I'm just going to place them to the side of the hat so that they stick out. And you just want to place those where you want them, just so it looks like an angel. And that's really all there is to making this cute little angel gnome. And here you have our male angel gnome. Now I'm going to show you how to quickly make a girl angel gnome. So with making a girl gnome, there are a lot of similarities to the boy gnome. We're just going to fill our sock with the rice and the polyfill and tie it off with a rubber band, just like we did with the boy gnome. And then we are going to stuff our hat as well with the polyfill to get it nice and full. So that's pretty much the same process as the boy gnome. Now the main difference is we won't be adding a beard to our girl gnomes, and we're going to be adding braided yarn for the braids of our girl gnome. So once your hat is stuffed, then we're going to move on to adding the braids. So as I mentioned, I'm using chunky braided yarn for my braids, and I'm just going to start by twisting a rubber band around the end of my braided yarn. This way the braided yarn will not unravel. And then I'm going to take the yarn and I'm just going to lay it on my gnome's body and just kind of measure how long I want my gnome's hair to be. And then I'm just going to cut a little bit extra just so that I can hot glue it underneath my hat. And just take another rubber band and tie off the other end. And then we're just going to repeat that for our second braid. We're just going to use the first one as our pattern and just cut off the same length on a second piece of yarn. Then we're going to bring our yarn over to our girl angel gnome and we're going to stuff it underneath her hat until we get the right length. And then I'm just going to take my hot glue gun and just put a blob of glue there and then stick on my two braids. And as you can see, we're working underneath the part that the hat is going to cover, so we won't see those two rubber bands at the top. We're going to cover that with our hat. So then once our hair is in place, we're just going to pull that hat down over our braids, and then we're going to attach our nose. And I like to hot glue my nose on the girl in place first because I kind of like to droop my hat over the nose. And so once my nose is hot glued in place, I'm just going to take my hot glue gun and go around the rest of the hat, just securing my hat into place. And again, like I mentioned, I kind of cover a little bit of the nose just so it blends in a little bit more. And once we have our hat in place, then we're going to go ahead and move on, and we're going to add a little apron to our girl gnome or a little dress. And we're just going to do that by taking the bottom portion of the sock we cut and then just putting that on top of our body of our girl gnome. And then we're going to hot glue the top of that sock into place. And then we'll just cut off any extra parts of the sock that we no longer need. If it's a little bit longer than you need, just go ahead and trim the bottom of that sock. And then we're just going to hot glue the bottom of our sock into place, and this is going to be our girl angel gnome's little dress. So this is a cute way to add some clothing to your gnome. You might want to add a couple buttons or other embellishments to her dress just to make it look cute. I have some white buttons and I'm just going to add them down the center of her dress. And our last step is just to attach our wings again. So again, we're going to just take hot glue and we're going to attach them to the side of our girl gnome. And now we have a boy angel gnome and a girl angel gnome, and they are just ready for Christmas. They're so cute. And then the last thing I'm going to do is just hot glue a little circle of the fabric on the bottom of this girl gnome, and that'll just give her a complete look underneath. And you can add extra embellishments like little snowflakes or little buttons, or I have like different trims. You could add some gold or white trim or lace to these gnomes. I have some little snowflakes, so I just hot glued those on to the bottom of our gnome so they match. But that's all there is to making cute little angel gnomes for Christmas. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope that you'll hit that red subscribe button so you can join us again tomorrow for day 18 of our countdown to Christmas, and you'll also get notified of any future videos. But thanks for being here and hope you have a great day.